Good evening to you all. Welcome to the third series of the webinar, Atma Nirbhar MSME. Now, I take this opportunity in introducing how we have started. We have started end of the April about new age entrepreneurship, followed in the COVID crisis, and it is the webinar series started by GSBS Private Limited and Center for Skill Development. And this is the third of its series. It's a multilingual webinar, and in fact, we were doing in the New Age Entrepreneurship weekly one. The first one started in the end of the April. We have started with New Age Entrepreneurship in English, followed by on the audience demand. We have also casted that in Hindi, and one more series of that also we have webcasted in Telugu. And last week we have also came out with Atma Nirbhar Abhiyan, the new age entrepreneurship. So we have connected with the requirement of the India, and that is also being conducted on the same day in three languages: morning, afternoon, and the evening. And today we have the third series of this Atma Nirbhar MSME. It is scheduled continuously. That is, it's a one webinar. You can also listen from 4 to 5 in English, 5 to 6 in Hindi, and 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. in Telugu. And I'm glad to introduce our organization. We have two organizations are involved in presenting this webinar series. One is Center for Skill Development. It is sponsored by Skill Development Association. It is operates with a motto that Dharmena Praptasya Vritti, that is prosperity through righteousness. The more details on this you can see www.sda.org.in/CSD. And we have another organization, that is GSBS Private Limited. Again, the motto is giving simple business solutions. The more on this, you can visit www.gsbsonline.in. And coming to the profile, I am Dr. Rudra, and my brief profile, I'm double doctorate, and I'm PhD in supply chain management, and also I did my post PhD in skill development. And I had double decade of experience, a decade in industry, pharma, and education, a decade in the academia. I'm associated with multiple universities, and now I have the presenter of the day in two languages, Telugu and Hindi, Sri Madhusudan Junjunwala. He is the CEO of GSBS Private Limited. He is a professional manager turned entrepreneur with 3 decades of experience, and he believes and practices that no problem ever exists without a solution, and problem is an opportunity to develop an organization. And he is BTech honors from IIT Kharagpur and MS from Southern Illinois University, USA. And in his past, he is associated with Videocron Group in the capacity of Chief Operating Officer and Vice President, and also President with GEL Pro. Also associated with multiple industries like Usha Martin Industries, Steel Authority of India Limited, Pest Control India, MSP Steel and Power, Esther Industries, and many more. He has undergone several trainings and coachings worldwide in the leading institutes like Harvard Business School and many more. And I'm glad to introduce Mr. Madhusudan Junjunwala. Now, so now I request Sri Madhusudan Junjunwala to take over the session. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Gupta. Thank you. Good evening to all of you for having come to this webinar. I would like to discuss in this series of webinars, as Rudra told you, which began, I think, 2 months back, from the concept of promotion of entrepreneurship. And Subsequently, thereafter, in our country, it was just a coincidence that Atma Nirbhar Bharat Abhiyan was also launched. This, as a matter of fact, was a very opportune moment, very appropriate event when we started this webinar. And then, when we were talking about entrepreneurship, the subject and topic, as visionary as Atma Nirbhar Bharat by our Prime Minister, was a very, very fortuitous coincidence. We started talking about entrepreneurship, and then here the leader of the country started talking about Atma Nirbhar Bharat Abhiyan. I have always believed a crisis is an opportunity to transform your vision, your life, your career, and achieve all your goals and dreams. I think in human history, as I have said earlier, COVID-19 has been that opportunity, and for India, our leadership is trying to transform that crisis into a great opportunity for this country. In the first webinar, we spoke about entrepreneurship. In the second, we spoke about how Atma Nirbhar Abhiyan could be a beginning of a new age of entrepreneurship in India. And now today we are at the third webinar in the series, in which we will specifically talk about Atma Nirbhar MSMEs. In earlier webinars also, I have briefly touched upon the relevance and importance of MSMEs, micro, small, medium enterprises, in the development of global economy, a country's economy, a state economy, a village economy, a city economy, and also its importance and relevance in the life of an individual. MSME, we need not repeat again, is a manifestation of entrepreneurship, which is the sole duty of any individual, which gets expressed through an enterprise, which either an individual works for or creates. At the subtlest level, at the smallest level, every individual an entrepreneur, but then, like a seed, that entrepreneur, that enterprise grows into a banyan tree. And the stages are micro, small, medium, and large. So, gentlemen, in today's session, we will focus on what is an Atma Nirbhar MSME and how Atma Nirbhar Abhiyan, Bharat Abhiyan, tries to achieve that Atma Nirbharta for the MSMEs of India. As we all know that there are 5 pillars of the Atma Nirbhar Bharat, namely economy, infrastructure, system, vibrant demography, demand. I will not go into the details of it because I have spoken to all of you about this in my previous webinars, and I think very shortly the YouTube version will be available. You can go and listen to them and look at them and would understand what we have spoken about. But here let me talk about 2 things: that any country becomes Atma Nirbhar through its economy and economic infrastructure, which has to be robust, and a demand in that economy drives the economy. Demand drives the economy, infrastructure supports the economy, demography drives the demand, and systems facilitate everything. This is what I have told. But then, if we have to create an Atmanirbhar Bharat, then the Atmanirbhar Bharat is constituted by that the systemic approach, and here basically we see the action approach. MSMEs, laborers, cottage industries, industries, middle class, they all put in their efforts in one way or the other, either as a consumer or a producer or as a both, and then they create an Atmanirbhar economy and they create an Atmanirbhar Bharat. And for this, the government has to create system, the government has to build infrastructure, the government has to carry out bold reforms across sectors to facilitate. And all of us together by consumption and production have to create that brand, the brand that we are proud of and we can speak volumes about so that it can become a global brand. So therefore, Atmanirbhar Bharat is nothing but an interplay of the constituents like cottage industry, MSMEs, industries, middle class, bold reforms, economy, infrastructure. So all these come together, play their role to create a Bharat, Atmanirbhar Bharat. Then I think let us go still a step further. What role Atmanirbhar MSME plays in building an Atmanirbhar Bharat? Well, Atmanirbhar MSME is having still a direct correlation because it acts as a bridge between large industries, cottage industries, laborers, middle class, and once again, there has been a need in our country to carry out bold reforms because Atmanirbhar MSME can be built only when they are having a right, proper, vibrant ecosystem that is supportive of the MSME culture. Unfortunately, in our country, we have not been able to build one. Starting from governance to the large industries, of whose backbone these MSMEs have been, they have not got the treatment they have deserved. But for a change, unfortunately for all of us, the Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan intends to do that precisely, and it is better late than never. Demand drives any economy. Without demand, an economy cannot be created, cannot grow. And therefore, what is the demand? Demand range from essential to non-essential, basic to luxury, simple to complex, consumption oriented to infrastructure created, business to business, business to consumer. So demand in an economy is created in multifarious forms. But eventually, they get consumed by the people in an economy either in the form of a product or a service or both. And the demand would be there only when people have the capacity to pay for it. That means people should be able to earn and pay for the demand. And their earning capacity decides what kind of a demand will be created, and the quantum and the type of the demand will decide the size of the economy. And hence, somewhere we are talking about 5 trillion economy, 10 trillion economy. So it all depends that how much is a demand. At the end of the day, every economy has to be productive. That means every individual has to be productive. That means an individual has to produce more and has to consume less. And an individual has to earn more, spend less, and save. Because all these saving surpluses get created into an economy as an investable surplus, which later on comes in the system as a capital investment to create further capacity, further capabilities, and also creates the economic resilience in the system, whereby you are able to absorb the shocks. So demand and a chain of demand is very, very critical. And here we can see there are four broad categories of demand. I mean, consumer, producers. Producer is basically a demand, which is a B2B demand, two industries supplying to each other, which is called B2B, business to business. And they in turn create finally a product which a consumer gets, gets to consume. Similarly, government also has got a demand, and services and exports. So the point is, the domestic consumer, if you look, there are three broad categories: workers, middle class, and upper class. Agriculture, migrant labor, unorganized workers, street vendors in our country, they constitute the major chunk of the demand, which is of a basic nature and a basic level, what we call sustenance level. You earn and spend the same day, you earn the next day, again spend. Your sustenance is not extending beyond maybe 2-3 days or 4 days or a week, what we call daily wage earners. Any economy in which majority is constituted by such people is an economy with poor economic resilience. It has got very little and limited capacity to absorb the shocks, because people, majority of them, are living on a day-to-day earning. And a small shock of any nature anywhere will create imbalances, thereby demand will be affected and economy will be affected. We are facing the same situation in our country today in the aftermath, in the wake of this COVID-19. Then second thing is the middle class, the salaried class, the traders, industrial and organized workers. And once again, the middle class, there are several classes: lower middle class, middle class, and upper middle class, with a varying degree of income, majority falling below the middle and the lower middle class, and a very limited percentage of our total population belongs to the upper middle class, the upper class, and these two classes actually drive the luxury consumption, which sells at a very high value. Other classes and categories of people support the basic consumption. For example, it's food, clothes, medical, and now it has started becoming housing. 2-3 decades back, even housing was a luxurious consumption, affordable only by a select few in our country. In 2 to 3 decades, it had changed. So we can understand that if the workers, the middle class, the agricultural class does not become financially strong, our economy cannot become strong and vibrant. But can you make them strong by giving subsidies? Can you pay for even the basic necessities of the majority of people in this country indefinitely, eternally, forever? No. How can you do that? You always pay for these things from the savings. Where do the savings come from? Savings come from the savings made by people, which is the surplus. That means you have to produce more, consume less. But the point is, if the earning and production is only telling the basic and daily necessity of people, the savings will not be there and economy will not be robust. And therefore, to support this consumer demand, that consumer demand actually drives the industrial production, because What people can afford, they will buy. That will be the demand which industries will produce. So consumer demand is the real demand. And then sometimes the demand is also created by government by creating projects, big projects, infrastructure projects. Then they want to take the economy and the country to the next level of development aspiration, from a basic and a sustenance level to the level of growth where people can have high aspirations in life. So that is where the government creates policies, develops new skill in people, so that people are able to do a better quality of job for which higher salaries and wages can be paid. Example is the IT industry, and people can be sent across overseas to do and bring forex, export services, export products. So the thing is that your basic requirement has to be funded by the domestic demand, and your savings and earning for the future investment has to come from high quality of work or the export earnings by way of exporting services and the goods to the foreign countries. Then the demand becomes sustainable. So basically, sustainable demand can happen only when people are having skills, they have a productivity, they have an opportunity, and all these opportunities have to be created by the government. They're long-term policies. But first, the government has to make the foundation very, very strong. So this, gentleman, was extremely important for us to understand that how demand drives an economic growth of a country and how demand has to be created. Demands cannot be induced. It is the money which basically travels in 10 hands, it becomes 10 times productive rather than money being accumulated in few hands. So therefore, proper and equitable distribution of money through proper and productive work is what is going to create a sustainable demand in any society, any country. Atma Nirbhar Bharat Abhiyan has identified that necessity, and as we can see here, that the demand is the government is talking about. And in subsequent slides, I will tell you that how this demand is going to be created by the government, what government is planning. So this demand will drive the economy. But how economy will service those demands? By infrastructure. And who creates the infrastructure? Government creates the infrastructure. Who creates the system? System is basically a soft infrastructure, again created by the government. This is namely, basically the policies, etc., etc. And what is vibrant demography? Vibrant demography is basically the people, the type, the age, the factor, their aspirations. So today's India's vibrant democracy is a vibrant democracy, vibrant demography, mainly because of the fact that the age distribution is quite young. People have got longer years to work, to learn, to produce, and create wealth, and therefore create the demand also. So therefore, that if this is there, this is where all these things, the middle class, they will create a demand, laborers, they will create a demand, and then all this demand will flow back into the industry, the cottage industry, and then this demand will get further grow, because when we will make it vocal from local, from vocal, and reform will be facilitated. So this is the core and the gist of Atma Nirbhar Bharat Abhiyan, and how are we trying to achieve that through an Atma Nirbhar MSME system and the demand. Now, bold reforms have been done. As you can see, what reforms I will talk about, what reforms have been carried out. You see, the first thing what government has done under this Atma Nirbhar Bharat Abhiyan, in several areas, reforms have been unleashed, starting from the agriculture sector, to coal sector, to basically power sector, and MSMEs. Here I would not talk much about the other reforms. I will primarily focus on what reforms have been carried out in MSMEs. Let us understand the background. In 2006, a Micro, Small, Medium Enterprise Development Act was passed by the Parliament, and in which the categorization was done on the basis of whether you are a service enterprise or a manufacturing enterprise. And there were three broad categories in both of them: micro, small, and medium, and manufacturing, and they were all investment based. Please note, it was all investment based. So any manufacturing having a 25 lakh, 2.5 million rupees investment in plant and machinery would be micro, 50 lakhs will be small, and 100 lakh, that is 1 crore, will be medium. Services, 1 million, that is 10 lakhs, would be micro, 20 lakhs will be small, and 50 million. That was way back in 2006. And today we are sitting in 2020. In last several years, nobody thought, because they never felt that MSME is so important. Had they thought that MSME is really very, very important, they would have gone for reform in this sector long time back. In 14 years, the inflation and everything has gone up. GST has been implemented, whereby both the services and the production and the manufacturing, they almost became at par in terms of paying the taxes. So it was highly illogical to maintain this categorization. Government has taken cognizance of that need and tried to correct that anomaly. So what they have done, they have revised. They have basically gone simply as an investment and a turnover criteria, treating both the manufacturing and the service sector at par. So basically, annual turnover, if it is 10 million rupees or 50 million annual turnover, it will be a micro. If it is 100 million investment, it will be a small, that is 10 crores investment and 50 crores turnover. And medium will be 50 crore of investment and 250 crores of turnover. And this categorization by and large covers about 98 to 90% of enterprises in India. That means whole of India is covered under MSME category. So there is no need like earlier for the enterprises to intrude into the MSME segment by doing the manipulation, by playing with the facts and the records, not focusing on the business, trying to have the MSME benefits and advantages. Basically, anything above 250 crore and 50, which is substantial for Indian industry, Indian economy. And one more thing is very, very important. In this 250 crore turnover, export turnover will not be included. That means your criteria to remain this classification of MSME is only your investment of 50 crores and annual turnover of 250 crores coming from domestic production and sale. Anything, even if it is 1,000 crores and you are getting from overseas business, you would still be a MSME category if your turnover is below 250 crores. And that actually a big boost for our MSME sector, because they would be getting benefits, all the exports benefit, which is available to anybody and everybody. They would have more incentive to go for exports. And 250 crore of a turnover for a domestic consumption for an MSME upper limit is quite reasonable and sizable. This is going to change the total financial market in our country. This is going to change the equity market in our country. So far, you have seen equity market being driven by the traders and the operators and the fund managers who would only focus on blue chip companies and exorbitantly, abnormally jack up their prices. That would not be required, because now here you can scout around for potential gems. A new breed of entrepreneurs can come forward, but I'm saying can come forward. Here is an opportunity. The opportunity by itself does not mean it will become a reality. The framework is there, the plan is there, a path is there. You have to travel. And therefore, execution, traveling, doing the journey becomes more and more important. Now, several encouragements have been given. Categorization would not be sufficient by itself. So first, any company, any MSME requires a financial support. I think, I would not like to mince words, and it's my personal experience. When I, as an entrepreneur, applied for a loan for a bank, I found that the banking system was totally lopsided in favor of the large enterprises, and they were applying the same criteria while giving the loan to the MSMEs, and that was the prescription for making them an NPA. Number one. Number two, they had a condescending approach, as if they were doing a favor. Unless you knew somebody, it will not come. Rule books will be there, government will be there, nobody would care. Perhaps government's intervention this time, an active one right from the Prime Minister to the Finance Minister, and so much of a focus is making efforts to change that. So first, let us have a look what they have done. They have given a priority sector status. The priority sector status means that government, the banks, the banking sector has to give it a due priority. Government has even given a guarantee to those banks through CGT, MSME and several other instruments to secure their fund. This mortgage has been a big problem. Majority of people who aspire to become entrepreneurs do not have enough assets to mortgage. So they were not eligible for a loan. Everything has been changed. So first, a collateral-free automatic emergency credit line for MSMEs have been done. Now here, you can get of your total outstanding 20% of your entire outstanding automatically as an emergency credit line. And any entity which is having a turnover of 1 billion and 250 million outstanding is eligible for it. No fresh collateral security is required, no guarantee is required. Repayment can be done in 4 years with a moratorium of 12 months. Maximum interest rates, banks 9.25%, which I feel is a very, very promising step, very, very encouraging step. But as we will see, is that enough? NBFC 14%. Until 31st March, people can avail. And for this, 3 lakh crore rupees have been sanctioned. Eligible lenders are all your scheduled banks, commercial and private, and the SIDBs, other institutions. Then again, government has sanctioned about 20,000 crores as a quasi-equity for stressed MSMEs. People can borrow this money from the bank, reinvest the same money from this fund. Promoters can borrow this money and reinvest as an equity to improve their balance sheets. The third one, the government has identified, allocated another 50,000 crores for infusion into MSMEs as a fund of fund. That means government will buy up to 15% of equity in the MSMEs, which shows a promise. Now, if financing has been addressed to some extent, some framework has been created, you have to guarantee them a business also. So the next stage has been taken up to 200 crores of a government purchase. No global tender will be floated. That means all government tenders, all government procurement, government will be done up to 200 crores without floating any global tender. Then, to reduce the burden, the statutory compliances, the contribution to EPF was made by the government. EPF contribution rate was reduced so that the MSMEs do not face a problem with their already stressed finances and performances. The banks should release the immediate credit line so that the immediate requirement is met The restarting of economy does not suffer for want of funds, for want of demand, and this is not enough. Lot is being planned, lot will have to be done. Apart from this, a host of measures are given by the government. For example, the subsidy on the capital investment, payment of interest, seed capital, reimbursement of SGST, concession or reimbursement of stamp duty, electricity bill, ESI, PFI, contribution reimbursement, several, so on and so forth. In fact, the government is even planning a MSME stock exchange. It was started a couple of years back. But since the size and definition of MSME was so small, and the promise of them getting to that level of the next was not so viable, it did not take off. But with the current reforms and the limits and all the barriers having gone, if now, in my opinion, a stock exchange is created, I think it will be a vibrant one. Then you see, these were on the financing side, a host of measures that will support the steps earlier in terms of demand, in terms of social security, in terms of encouraging people for becoming an entrepreneur. A host of measures have been taken which will impact, help entrepreneurship development, social security, governance and banking reforms, and also innovation and research. Government would have not less than 100 schemes already before this, and it is not available to us for want of our local awareness. There are so many schemes we don't even know. It's high time that we start knowing about them, because technology is available, digital platforms are available, we can access them. Champions.gov.in is a platform in which all the information is available in integrated fashion. Make in India, Startup India, Stand Up India, CGT MSME, Mudra Bank, Ease of Doing Business. These are the initiatives the government has taken for promoting, encouraging entrepreneurship among people. I told you, every individual is an entrepreneur. Every individual, as an employee also, you are an entrepreneur. Because ultimately, definition of entrepreneurship is what? Who creates a surplus? We have been using this word entrepreneurship only for people who do business. But my definition of entrepreneurship, as long as you are creating a surplus, you are an entrepreneur. Yes, as you go on that path, there are larger opportunities. Like, for example, we start our educational career from kindergarten and go up to a postdoctoral level. Similarly, in the journey of entrepreneurship, you could be starting as an individual and can become basically a owner of a multinational enterprise. So entrepreneurship is a process. It's a spirit. In the social security front, Janadhan, Manrega, Ayushman Bharat, direct benefit transfer, Give It Up, Arogya Setu, Skill India. So many promising programs are there. And if they are used, I think most of what we need is available in the country. But what we need is basically participation of the citizens, professionalism in the bureaucracy. The government has to understand a helping hand has to be given, and implementation has to be focused. Then GST, introduction of Aadhaar, crusade against corruption, digital, India, insolvency and bankruptcy code, demonetization. I think, each one of them are a subject by itself on which a separate webinar can be done, so I would not get into that. But what I'm trying to tell you, here are the initiatives already initiated by the government in last 6 to 7 years, where a proper ecosystem can be built to build an Atma Nirbhar Bharat. So what I would say that the Atma Nirbhar Bharat, it is not because of pandemic or COVID-19. I think it is basically a gradual progress of a long-term vision and a plan this country has needed for a long time. Last but not the least, innovation and research. There are many schemes, many plans of government, many policies of government which encourage agriculture, energy, waste management, water conservation in the basic infrastructure, innovation and research, which will help us preserve and conserve our natural resources, which are limited in nature, reduce the wastage, recycle the waste, save the environment, improve the technology. So I think, gentlemen, whatever need is needed for making India a vibrant economy, I think governments everywhere, whether at the center or the state, have envisioned it, taken initiatives, yes, maybe for several reasons. They might not have got enacted, implemented. The benefit of that might not have, percolated down to the lower level, to the last level, the last mile. I mean, in much the same manner as our late Rajiv Gandhi had one day said that out of every rupee, only 15 paise reaches the where it should reach. Same thing could be happening. We are having the fantastic programs, but because of a bureaucratic inertia and the government lethargy in the last several years, it has not reached and made a difference to the country it should have done long time back. But anyway, there is no point crying over the spilt milk. Let us pick up the baton and move on. So, Atma Nirbhar Bharat, I think we are consciously, unconsciously building an ecosystem. And again, there are opportunities also being created by the government policies. So you see, the opportunities mainly will be funded by government in the public infrastructure and projects. As I said earlier, that the demand in my first slide, that the major demand creator is the government by creating the infrastructure projects. Okay. So social infrastructure, Swachh Bharat, 100 smart cities, housing for all, water conservation, road and public transportation, river linking. These are big projects in India, which are being conceived, which are in the process of implementation. And once implemented, India will be having a fantastic social infrastructure almost at par with almost all the developed countries. On the technology front, these will bring a lot of business and employment opportunities in their way. Similarly, in the field of technology, digital India, defense indigenization by creating defense corridors, alternative energy. I mean, India today is the leader in as far as solar energy, renewable energy comes. Energy storage. Now we are thinking of doing away with the conventional energy, the oil and the gas and the fossil fuel, and move more towards renewable energy like hydel energy, solar energy, wind energy, etc., etc. And then not only that, do away with the need for transmission. Store those energy in the batteries. You see, the whole landscape of energy management and uses is going to change. You would be having more of an autonomous source of, rather captive source of energy, renewable energy at your house. Just imagine your rooftop solar meeting all your requirements from your dependency on the electricity boards. So these are the visions. In several countries, these visions have become a reality. And they have changed the fate of those countries. If this happens in our country, perhaps we might have it here as well. Then faster adoption of mobility in electric mobility, Skill India, global supply chain, Make in India, defense corridors, global manufacturing hub, MSME sector, Industry 4.0, medical devices, agriculture, soil conservation, more crop per drop, food processing, technology intervention. So all these are the entrepreneurial opportunities, employment opportunities for everybody, whereby people's skill will go up, their earning will go up, higher and new demands will be created, and it will have a cascading effect and a cyclical effect on the economy. Agricultural reforms have been done so that the agriculturist, the farmer, the backbone of the economy, is having freedom to sell where he likes, to quote the price what he can command, which freedom has been curtailed so far, and also bringing a lot of grains and cereals out of the Essential Commodities Act so that they will have more freedom to determine their own destiny and increase their earning. And this once again, the demand structure and the nature will change at the rural level, rural industry will grow, and demand from rural economy will drive the economy of the country. All these schemes, it's extremely important. If you look, the government has spoken about 20 lakh crore, that is 20 trillion rupees as a package, 10% what they say of the financial package. Now, with this package does not mean it will be given in the hand of the people. The package is given to facilitate the flow of money, increase the liquidity. Money moves from one hand to the other, and people have enough to earn, to invest, and to do things. And so that this money is like a petrol. I mean, your vehicle should not stop because of fuel. So therefore, economy should not stop because of money. It is not that somebody has given you in your account so that you spend and consume. I can give you money, but if you don't have enough production, what will you with that money? So money and production have to go hand in hand. You see, if the production is too much and money is not there, well, the prices will go down. If too much of money is there and no production is there, inflation will come. So therefore, a sustainable demand is the one in which money generation, money rotation, and the demand move hand in hand in a balanced manner. So gentlemen, it is just a snapshot of this enterprise segmentation. You see that micro, small, medium, I'm just recapitulating. Manufacturing, priority status, MSC, I have told you about. Interest subvention, and TRDES, basically, it's once again an instrument whereby the bill discounting facility will be given over and above the bank finance. The trade bills of these enterprises, they will be able to get a discount. They would be able to basically borrow money on their receivables. You see, technically, theoretically, all these things have existed. But since the point is, everything was not favorably oriented against MSMEs, and they were always struggling with the working capital. They did not know the capital management. They did not have a proper financial guidance. They could not really focus on business. And moreover, whatever financial projection they made, it was always discounted by the financiers, saying that this is not what you require and this is what not you require. And ultimately, they always had, even before the project started, a shortage of working capital, and hence they have suffered. There's a lot happening in the global supply chain, so there are opportunities. I don't have to say much about China. People are looking for shifting their base. India could be a possible destination, but India will not be the only destination. So we will have to compete with Vietnam, Cambodia, Philippines, other countries. Supply chain efficiency is going to be extremely, extremely important, and we have to focus on investing in technology. If we don't invest in technology, these countries will benefit because they are already investing into these technologies, and maybe the companies which want to shift out of China may not come to India. Then again, demand mix will change. Infrastructure, agriculture, all these things post-COVID, it will pick up. Supply side will become competitive because I think the investment will come. Now with all these things, more and more investment will come in capacity creation. So for a while, you will feel that there will be more supply. Supply will exceed the demand. Eventually, they will find an equilibrium. Margins will come down, but that would be a good thing. When the margins come down, we are always on our toes to keep ourselves fit and fine. And last but not the least, our economy will have to have a robust mix of domestic consumption, value-added export for technology, services, and products, and import substitution. Some of the industries where a lot of opportunities will be there. I have discussed it earlier, and I think we need to go more and more into details in subsequent webinars. Medical devices, services, food and processing, with the monsoon and the food, more and more food being produced, cold chain, retailing, warehousing will pick up, personal hygiene. Everything is being driven today by IT and communication technology, supply chain, warehousing, cold chain, reskill development, agriculture, agri-tech, low-cost automation in MSME industry, and of course infrastructure. So these are the sectors. Some of the sectors which will not be picking up are the non-essential manufacturing, tourism, aviation. We have discussed at length in our previous presentations. So I think broadly you get a feel of what will pick up and what will not pick up. The point is, post-COVID, people are going to be more and more focused on what is essential. One thing has happened. What COVID has changed is the socio-psychological profile of people. People will definitely distinguish and try to realize whether they are having enough for the future, for the calamities, and just meet the basics first, save enough, and see if surplus is there for the luxurious demand. Broadly, MSME opportunities will come from domestic demand when a Nagarik wants to become Atma Nirbhar, value-added export of technology and services, import substitution, technology development innovation, e-commerce skilling automation, supply chain efficiency. I think in days to come, in our subsequent webinars, we will talk in more details about it, about each of these sectors, how this is going to happen. Paucity of time and the constraint of time does not permit. I think, broadly, enterprises are categorized in 6 categories. Excellent performance, there's those who beat the industry standards. Such enterprises who are working almost at the industry standard. The ones who are below the industry standard but still making a profit. But the ones to worry about are loss-making ones, sick, and startups. We can see a lot of activity in these 4-5 areas, and it's our core competency to help these kind of enterprises, B2F, to help them and come into a category. These are our offerings for the aspiring entrepreneurs, starting from a due diligence to building the enterprise, creating that enterprise, taking that market, taking that to the financial market, a whole range of services we give. And we are excited and committed to play our role as an organization with the entrepreneurs in building them Atma Nirbhar. Thank you very much. Here is basically our email and the website details. You can visit and get more details about us. You can write to us on these emails. And I wish to see you in my next webinar as an. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Now, any questions in the English, you can chat on the chat box, which is available beneath. Otherwise, you can write to gsbusiness.madhusudan@gmail.com and csdrjy@gmail.com. So any of the responses we can come. Otherwise, if you have any doubts right now, you can raise your hand. Then I can unmute you. If no questions are then we are ending the session, English session, and within a couple of minutes, we'll start the Hindi one.